There it is.
Welcome to Table Talk, where there's always room at the table. I am your host, Jonathan Harmon of the J. Harmon Home Team, and we can't wait to talk to these fine guests. Enjoy the show.
All right. Happy Monday. Happy almost Thanksgiving, Trent.
Yeah. Thank you.
Are you so excited?
Yeah.
Is Amy fixing dinner?
We're believe it or not, we're not big Thanksgiving folks these days.
No,
just the three of us. So
y'all express your thankfulness and gratitude to each other pretty often.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, for sure.
That's good.
We're kind of weird. Me and my mom will go volunteer somewhere, and then we'll have a little meal, the three of us.
Outstanding.
That's a good way to do it.
One of my favorite Thanksgivings, we actually went to Cracker Barrel and ate, and you do the whole leave a big tip thing and all that. But man, it was nice because there was no cleanup.
Yes.
It was just easy.
Mhm.
And the folks that were working were thankful to be there. They were, I'm sure they were making good money.
Yep.
And that was a good one. We only did it once, and I'm like, can we just do that
We
again?
run the Cracker Barrel.
Yeah, that was so much better.
So we're kind of group texting all the holiday Thanksgiving stress
Yeah.
memes to each other now.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Trying to be ready for Thursday.
It just doesn't make any sense. I mean, we're driving all over God's creation, and I love having family, and I love having people to go visit. And if you're watching, I love all of you, and I can't wait to see you. But man, yeah, we're gonna burn up the highway.
Oh yeah,
for a few days. So anyway, it'll be all right.
Yep.
I've got Mr. Brad Heck here with me, and we've known each other actually for quite some time.
Known of each other and been around each other.
That's right.
We 25 years probably.
We went to church together for a little while, and just your wife's name is Anita,
That's
right?
correct. Yeah.
Yep. And got to know them a little bit at church, and similar overlapping circles there.
Right.
But Brad has been in the electrical industry, the electrical supply industry, like
utility
industry,
right.
For many years, almost 30 years,
About
right?
30, correct.
Yeah. And he is here to talk about something that is very near and dear to my heart. So if you watch my podcast or if you read my emails or anything like that, I have frequently said, and even when I taught high school, I would say that unfortunately, parents, and I don't think they do it on purpose, but definitely teachers and stuff have kind of proliferated this lie that in order for you to have success in life, you got to go to a 4-year college.
Right.
And I say that it's a lie because it's just plain not true. There are all kinds of other options out there. And I think it's important for kids to know that they have those options. I had all kinds of students that, man, for them to even consider getting through 12th grade and then going and sitting in a classroom again for 4 more years, it just wasn't going to happen.
Yeah.
And what we don't need to do is tell them, well, then you're just going to be a failure,
right?
Because the only way for you to be, and it's because it's just plain false.
That's correct.
And this is a topic that's dear to you as well.
It is, yeah.
Tell me some more.
So, like you said, I've been around the electric power utility industry now for 30 years. I started out in engineering, and I was one of those kids. I came from a blue collar family. I was the first one in our family to go to college, and I was told probably from middle school on, you're going to go to college. You're going to go to college, and so it became my reality.
Right.
I didn't know anything else, and I think, and I was okay with that because it was mom and dad. That's the way I was going to go. I explored around and ended up in engineering. Gravitated to civil engineering. I grew up working with my hands. Our neighbors had large farms, enjoyed it, liked being outside, looked at the engineering world. When I went and visited Tennessee Tech, what did I want to do? Was it business? What was it going to be? And I thought engineering, went into civil engineering because I was like, well, those guys are outside. They're building things. They're in the dirt. That sounded good. And that's where I landed. Met my wife there. She's also a civil engineer. But ended up at Nashville Electric Service. Almost wasn't really planned. It just happened. Went in a role that wasn't related to operations at all. Worked through their engineering group. Built a lot of large, interesting projects. And about halfway through my career, back in 2008, had an opportunity to go into operations. I'd been in the field with the guys building those projects. Had a lot of respect for them. It was the opportunity to get away from the cubicle, the drafting board, and get back out where the rubber met the road.
Where you wanted to be.
Face of the utility, the pride in seeing what I'd put on paper become a reality, which is very fulfilling. So that worked for me. And I've grown to have a great appreciation for and the men and women. I'm going to say the word lineman a lot today. I use that generic. We'll talk a little bit about there's a trend of trying to get more women interested in the trade,
Sure,
which
because
is
it
is
has
a good
typically
thing.
been a male dominated.
Typically male
role.
dominated, correct. And typically it's been a career where if your father was in it, your uncle or a brother, if that was your way in, you knew about it, you saw it, put food on the table, made your family a good living. And if you weren't inclined to go traditionally to a 4-year college career route, you knew that was a good opportunity, and that hasn't changed. It's hard to go recruit young people into this world, and that's what I want to try and get the message out about. I'd like to talk a little bit today about what does it look like, how do you get there, what do you do once you're in that career, do you make good money? I've told some young kids it can change your family tree.
For sure.
We've had some outreach to some inner city type communities, and we tell them that this could really change the future of you and your family, and it can. I want people to know that's a reality. I want to talk a little bit about some of the hazards associated with it and keep them in perspective. There's hazards with everything we do. We
Sure.
drove here today. That was hazardous.
Especially through Murfreesboro. Good
And
gracious.
I also want to try and get parents comfortable with the concept. If perhaps it's a family where their tradition has been, hey, we all go to UT, we all go to MTSU, or we all go to college. That's what our family does. I want to maybe throw out the perspective of, well, there's another way.
Mhm.
And at the end of the day, what's the return on the investment, right?
And so I think that's the critical question that we leave out of the university conversation, right? I used to teach economics at Blackman High School, and I would have kids that would say, "Well, I'm going to go to Belmont and get a teaching degree," and I
Yeah.
would say, "Well, please explain to me how that makes
Right.
sense, right? How is spending $30K a year when you're going to come out making $35K a year,
Yeah.
to start with?" And it just doesn't
Right.
make sense. The other thing that I think that there's this lie, and hear me out on this. We tell people that this is the land of opportunity in the
Right.
United States. You can be anything you want to be, and that's just not true.
Doesn't always happen.
It's just, I mean, it's just not
Right.
true. I mean, if you don't have a propensity towards mathematics and things like that, and it comes very difficult to you, you're going to struggle becoming an engineer.
That's correct.
I mean, you're
Yeah.
just going to. Now, is it possible? Sure,
Yeah.
but it's not likely. You know, if you have bad eyesight, you're not going to be a fighter pilot.
Right.
I mean, you're just not. If you're terrified of heights and you have this crippling phobia, you probably shouldn't climb towers.
That's correct.
I mean,
that is correct.
so I think we need to be careful about how optimistic we
Right.
are, because it turns
Yeah.
into unrealistic.
Well, I want to just take one step back, and I don't want to go into this and be anti-college.
Sure,
Right? It is the right pathway for a lot of people,
absolutely.
and it's necessary. I was meeting last week with a gentleman who's a PhD physicist that's in this utility industry, and we need that. He's
Absolutely.
thinking about what's going to be happening not just 5 years from now, but 10, 15, 20, and that's important. And there's other functions there that it requires that 4-year degree.
But you still got to have the person that puts it into action.
That's right. And there are situations where a family can afford it. So the return on investment may not fall on the head of just the student, right?
Right.
And that's okay. But for someone who can't or doesn't have access to that, trades and other pathways are very important. And I think
And
we can't
frankly,
overlook it.
they're becoming more lucrative.
That's correct.
Because there are fewer people
That's
going
right.
into them.
Yeah.
My father was a mechanic for a long, long time, and then he moved into more like building trades and worked at a lumber yard, did some earth moving and things like that, and very blue collar. They've made a
Right.
good living for themselves. And I was the first one out of the family to go to college. My little brother didn't. He went to a Nashville Auto Diesel at the time.
Yeah.
Again, we need people to do those things,
Absolutely. Yeah.
and because of that, and because there is a high demand market and a low supply of that, the salaries in those just continue to go up.
Yeah, they will.
And as you get somebody that's given the ability to kind of set some hours on that, because there is a high demand and low supply, you also open the door for someone to get in there that's sharp, that understands it, to innovate within the industry without a college degree.
Right.
It's totally possible.
Yeah, and we'll talk a little bit today. You've got to be a pretty sharp individual to get into this line of work. There's a lot of concepts. So you're working with high voltage to understand how it works. What does it mean if something's grounded or dead that I can safely work on? If it's not, what do I need to know to safely work on it? Because
you're constantly
you're always
troubleshooting.
thinking. And some of the most intelligent people I work with in my career, they're the linemen. I can think of 3 or 4 names right now that they're just brilliant people. They found their calling, they're in it, and when you find someone that's done that, they're a rare find, and they're very it's very rewarding to work with those people.
But they also probably can't stand the idea of sitting behind a desk.
That's correct.
Yeah, I mean, like that is. Yeah, I mean, you might as well just shoot me now.
I was on a project one time. I had to go up on a transmission line to take a look at some damage that had happened from an engineering perspective. Was with a lineman. I was very uncomfortable. I was out of my element. We were 100 feet off the ground, kind of bouncing around in the wind.
I'm not doing it. It's not happening.
And I asked him, I said, "You love this, don't you?" He said, "I love it." He said, "I come to work every day." He said, "This is my jungle gym." He said, "I love it." So, that's important.
Well, kudos to you, because there's no way I'd have been up there. I'd have been like, just take a picture and bring it back down.
I needed to get down quickly. So he had fun with me too. He made it very uncomfortable.
I'm sure he did. As if I were in his shoes, I would do as well.
He smiled about it. Anyway.
Well, all right. So tell me more about just the job itself.
Right.
So, I mean, what I know is from the song, Pennsylvania Lineman.
Wichita Lineman.
That's it. Yeah, I mean, I know that, right? So tell me more about the job. What did it used to be? How has it evolved? Right. What is it now?
So I was reading recently a lot of the principles that went into the career or the trade of a lineman now started out in the 1800s when the telegraph became a reality. Installing it. So I read that those systems were installed through trees. Onto houses, anything that they could get those telegraph lines on. That's where this industry really started, and the work methods and the understanding of electricity and distributing it to where it needed to be. And obviously, it grew. It became more complex into the late 20s, early 30s with the TVA, other regional power authorities coming out of the Works Progress Administration, the WPA. There was a
alphabet
need,
soup.
Right. There was a people wanted electricity, right? The light bulb was a reality. It was becoming prevalent in the urban areas, the cities where they were dense and could build it. And then the whole model of the cooperative came into play. So the legislations became a reality, and rural communities started banding together, forming an electric cooperative where the members own the system. It's the same model we have today, and they began to build the system to get out to the farmer or the people in the rural areas to have that convenience of having light. That's how it first started. Obviously, it's grown in the past 100 years tremendously. Everything we do is electrified. We're charging devices all day. We have everything in our home is controlled at the flip of a switch. So the job itself now it's the operations, construction, and maintenance of that grid. And there are folks that work on the transmission level. They work for TVA, another large regional transmission authority. They're building the high towers, the large lines that connect one city to another, a power plant to another power plant. You get down to the local level, and it's the municipal utilities and the co-ops. So we had Murfreesboro Electric until a few years ago. They merged with Middle Tennessee Electric. That's a cooperative model. Middle Tennessee Electric is one of the larger cooperatives in the nation. They serve us. You'll see their folks out on the lines all over town, building into the new residential development. You'll see them there, and then maintaining the things that have been built going back
everything
60, 70 years.
Everything from someone running into a pole to a branch falling on, cutting the branches back before they fall on.
When there's a storm, when there's a car versus pole, the lineman has to react, go out and safely
transformers
restore power.
Explode,
That's
whatever.
Correct. Yeah. It's a large system, and again, it's the infrastructure's aging. So I call it an evergreen industry. We've gone through this period. We're still in it of the inflationary curve. It doesn't stop the flow of electricity, right?
If anything, it increases it.
Yes, and it would be one of the last places I think people would think to conserve. Initially, can I cut my grocery bill? Can I not go out to eat as much? But we really don't think about, I'm going to get up and not turn on the light or not stay warm or cool in the house.
Well, and then you get into a situation where if I do want to, like if we invite Middle Tennessee Electric in to do their audit of our
Right.
system or whatever,
Right.
the suggestions are smart thermostats, add
Right.
insulation, LED
Yeah.
bulbs, whatever. And in order to save money, you got to spend
Yeah.
money, and so then it
Yeah.
it gets more challenging.
But it is evergreen. It's not going to go away. Technology will change, and the linemen will just have to learn the new technology. They'll still have to support it. They'll still have to maintain that system that gets those electrons from the distributor to that customer.
And that process, I mean, in order for there to be massive innovation, I mean, you almost have to have discovery of something, right? I mean, you still have conductive lines,
Right.
you insulate them and you transmit it over a span of time. So you still have to, step up your voltage,
Right.
step down your voltage, whatever. Unless we have some massive breakthrough, some,
Yeah.
new conductive material, I mean, I don't even
Right.
know what it would be.
Right.
It's not going to change
I,
terribly much. Is that right?
in my perspective, you're correct. Now, the gentleman I met with last week, he may be thinking on a different plane, probably is, but getting the power to the customer is going to be through that grid system,
Mm-hmm.
that conductor that gets it there. I think the technology in the here and now is the renewables, both at the generation level. TVA is trying to move coal generation off their system, trying to retire those assets and move
Sure.
more to a mix of renewables. And it's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take decades to get there. But on the customer level, solar at your home is a reality. Electric vehicles are growing in popularity. So yeah, the technology is going to move fast.
And storage.
Battery storage is
Mhm.
becoming a reality, both local to a home and also at the utility scale level. I believe Middle Tennessee Electric has a Tesla installation at one of their substations. That's I would assume it's part of a pilot study they're doing to probably implement that across their system.
And before we got started, you were talking about we were talking about renewables, and um, it's ever since we've really had this available, there's always been a concept of, if I have panels at my house, I can generate some electricity, I can store some, and then potentially essentially sell it back
Right.
through the grid.
So the traditional solar model has been what you've not been able to use, flows back to the grid, and it's been some sort of a rate credit to the
Right.
customer. The battery concept is newer, being able to store at the local residential level. That's becoming a reality, and that storage could be for the use of the customer. And there's some discussions about the concept of a virtual power plant in the future as those become more prominent. The metering systems have intelligence where the utility could coordinate with the customers in a time of a high peak due to load or after a storm situation where there's damage. Could they bring power back onto the system that the customers generated?
So it almost becomes more of a gatekeeper.
Right.
Electricity flows this way, or it
Right.
flows this way.
Yeah.
Hmm.
But so I think the whole reality is the lineman's going to have to understand the technology going forward. So again, we're not just looking for the young man or young woman who didn't have another option. We need intelligent people with a good work ethic, and some real aptitude to learn new technologies and understand them to integrate into this trade
and be ready to innovate and
Right.
and be ready to shift. So I guess where I'm going with that is that as that technology emerges and truly evolves and becomes something that's approachable for the everyday person, that lineman may switch into almost an installation type person
could
within
right
much smaller scale, but
yeah.
on a big scale, small scale, if that makes sense.
I'd say, at a smaller utility, a lineman wears a lot of hats.
Mhm.
They may find themselves troubleshooting issues at the homeowner level,
Mhm.
as well as, building and maintaining the system.
Mhm.
But yeah, you're right. They're going to have to know, and know what components they're dealing with, how the technology works. They're the face of the utility. They're the person in the field. There's a lot of times when a lineman just gets stopped working on something else, a customer will come, hey, I've got this problem, this question, and we have ways to deal with that where I work. We're able to follow back up with those customers. So
Right.
yeah.
Well, that's pretty cool. So, all right. So, walk me through the process of becoming a
Okay.
full fledged lineman.
All right. So typically it's an apprenticeship. pathway. That's the most effective way to take that person from either a high school graduate or they've graduated and gone into something else. It's not what they want to do,
Mhm.
and they think, "Hey, I need to make a change." And that apprenticeship process can look different. So we've talked about municipal utilities, cooperatives. There's investor-owned utilities, and then there's the larger regional organizations, the TVAs that are generating and transmission, G&T. Um, as I thought through this, I really kind of charted a pathway from that high school graduate. And what I would encourage people to do is, if you think this is something you're interested in, um, be persistent early on. And some of the things you're going to need when you get out, a CDL is vital in this
Okay.
industry, right? You're going to be driving the bucket trucks, the trucks that dig to set a new pole,
Hauling the
hauling the
poles.
poles on a trailer. So a CDL becomes it's a piece of it's in the toolbox. You've got to have it.
Full-fledged CDL.
CDL.
Okay.
So it's very important as a young person. And when I have the chance to talk to them, I tell them, don't make bad decisions. And anything that could jeopardize you being able to obtain a CDL. And we're having this conversation. We're going to be very frank. Alcohol, drug use, DUI, you get about one chance, right?
Yes.
Now, if that happens in high school and it's a large utility looking to hire that's doing very thorough background checks and motor vehicle checks, that may be an automatic no. We're not going to take the chance. There's such a demand in the field. Maybe a contractor or a smaller utility may look at that differently and say, it happened in high school.
Yeah, you were a dumb
We
16-year-old.
have
Yeah.
our random testing in place, which every utility or contractor will. There's random drug and alcohol tests. So you need to be thinking now, foolishness away. I need to focus and don't come out of high school with a bad decision. I think the CDL law is now, if you get a CDL, you're going to lose that for about a year. First strike. I think second strike, and you're probably done, is the way I understand it.
And the standards are higher as well. So I know like legal drinking, legal alcohol limit for me without a CDL is 0.08.
Right.
For a CDL holder, whether you're in a commercial vehicle or not is irrelevant. It's lower than that.
I think it's almost half of that.
I believe you're right.
But and I've seen it happen in my career. I've seen young men who've made that bad choice, found themselves in that situation. It's tough to watch. They know what they stand to lose when that happens. But be smart about that. And if you have an opportunity in high school, I know a lot of high school now is focused on getting college credits ahead of time through AP classes. If that's not your thing, and you can research it, you can begin the process of doing some of the training to get a CDL. I think there's some age limitations. I think 18 may be a point, but you can begin the process to study so that you're ready. Coming right out of high school, what I tell young people is the best pathway. If you obviously look at the websites, look at your local utility website, see if they're hiring. There'll be times when you may see they're hiring at an entry level, and you may meet some of those qualifications. It's different from one utility to the next.
Sure.
They may be hiring for a laborer. If you see that, that is what it is. A laborer will go out with a line crew, and they'll be the hands-on guy that's maybe shoveling rocks out of a
running the
loader.
auger or whatever. Yeah,
they're hands-on. That's an entryway into a utility. Storeroom type job is an entryway into a utility. There's not a lot of them. That's a lesser probability of you finding that. If you know someone that works at a utility, talk to them and ask them. Watch the websites. The other pathways are they call them lineman colleges. There's a couple that are regionally accessible to us. One is in McEwen, Tennessee. It's the North American Lineman Training Center. The other one is in Georgia, and it's the Southern Lineman Training Center. They're 14 or 15 week programs, and they're about a $15,000 program. But when we talked about return on investment earlier, and you're paying one tuition of $15,000, and there's GI bills accepted by those schools. There's other financing ways to go in. You're only there for 15 weeks. Trent and I were talking about making contacts and networking in whatever industry you're in. While you're in one of those schools, they're constantly bringing in someone from a utility to talk to the students, the different electrical contractors that utilities hire to augment our forces. leverage those contacts. You're going to meet them. You're going to get a good, solid training. You come out certified to climb. You come out with a CDL, and then you're very employable into an apprenticeship program at a utility.
And from a utility standpoint, especially a smaller utility standpoint, I mean, they just did the training for you.
They did it for you. You eliminated some of the risk.
And
right?
you paid for your own
That's
instead
right.
of
Right.
the utility paying.
Right.
So, I mean, it only makes
And-
sense that they would go where that is.
And when there's another pathway that's become available, and I'll share a little bit about it. The community colleges, regionally, there have been they've made some inroads into providing training. They've not been as popular as the training colleges because, one, they typically didn't have as many of the industry contacts, and they didn't have access to doing a good job fair, right?
Mhm.
Bringing in a dozen contractors. They may have a local partner that would come in and see them. So Columbia State University's started a program within the last couple of years. And so that's a place you could go look, but they require you come in with a CDL. So you've already made that investment. So once you get into their program, it's about an 8 or 10 week program, and it's about half the cost of one of the training colleges.
But you've got to do the CDL
But
separate.
you had to do the CDL on the front end. Good programs. Look for those opportunities. Once you've completed a program, you're certified to climb. You've met the base entry requirements typically then to go into the field as an apprentice. And what I'd like to say about that is ask questions. And the question you need to ask is, the apprenticeship I'm about to enter been reviewed and endorsed by either the U.S. Department of Labor or at the state level? The state of Kentucky manages their DOL program for the federal government.
Mhm.
There are several states that do that. In Tennessee, it's U.S. Department of Labor. But if your apprenticeship is endorsed by them and you complete it, you get a certificate from either your federal or state DOL, and that's your golden ticket. As a lineman, that goes with you anywhere. That certifies if you wanted to go from Tennessee to California. He's completed the DOL apprenticeship. I know he's had the training and understands the trade.
And how long is an apprenticeship? Is that a year, 2 years?
It's a 4-year apprenticeship. The ones that are DOL certified,
and you're paid while you're doing that.
You're paid while you're working for your employer, and you're paid pretty well.
Mhm.
I want to finish up on the apprenticeship. They're a 4-year program. You'll be tested along the way. Typically, your first couple years, it's every 6 months. The last year and a half, they may wait till the end and do a top out type safety
Mhm.
exam. And you're being tested on the skills around doing the job safely. Do you understand the safety protocol and measures? Are you doing the work the right way to do it safely? But the rest of it's on the job training. And typically your first year as an apprentice, you're going to be working de-energized. You'll then step your way into working energized lower voltages, and then you'll step your way up to working fully energized distribution lines, knowing how to do it safely, protect you, the person you're working with, the homeowner on the ground.
Right.
And that's how those programs work. At the end, you become a journeyman, and then you're a lineman for the county, right? That's the whole thing.
That's pretty cool.
There are some contractors that have what they call their apprenticeship program, and due to limitations of usually financial resources, they've not taken the step to get the Department of Labor review and endorsement. The other thing to remember is the private contractor, there's a high turnover rate. And so they just determine, I know how I want to train a lineman. If they stay with me for the 3 or 4 years to get the 7,500 or 8,000 hours, I will call them a topped out lineman, but they don't have a DOL certificate. I may give them a certificate from me that says you completed ABC Electric's apprenticeship program, but that's not going to be transferable. I've hired people who've gone through programs like that, and I can give them credit for some of their hours, but not all. So I may give someone like that 2 years credit if I can substantiate, yes, you were there 2 years, bring them in and let them finish my program. And then the way ours is structured, they can get their DOL certificate at the end. So it's not a total limiter if you go that way, but be aware of what you're getting into.
Right.
If it's a way in, it's your only way in, by all means, go do it.
Right.
And I want to talk real quick to that as you get out and look for the jobs are plentiful on the contractor side. Contractors tend to get a little bit of a bad rap. And here's what I can tell you. If you go to work for a large electrical contractor that works for municipal and cooperative utilities, building transmission lines or coming in as resources after a storm, it's hard work. You're going to go where the money is. You're going to go where the need is. You may be living in a hotel. When the hurricanes hit Florida, you're going there. You're going to make great money, but you're going to work hard, no doubt.
And inconsistent.
And you're not able to put roots down. And if it's important to you early on to put those roots down, that can be prohibitive. So I tell people when I go talk to a lineman college, go get the job. Go. It's easier to hunt for that next job while you're employed. Don't lose time. After you've done this training, go in there and start building your skills. There's no better place to learn those skills quickly than a contractor that's got you hopping all over the place. That's not always the case. Some contractors are implanted with the system. There's people on middle system locally that they work here. They live here. They feel pretty comfortable. They're going to be here. That may not happen at the end of that 3 or 5 year contract, but sometimes it does. But don't let that be a deterrent. I had a slide I was going to read real quick, just so you have an idea. There's about 2,000 municipal electric utilities in the nation. There's 800, almost 900 electric co-ops, and there's another couple hundred investor-owned utilities serving at the residential commercial customer level. So there's every town, every county across the nation is getting electrical service. So those opportunities are out there, but then the contractor number is a magnitude higher than that number of municipal-owned systems or cooperatives. So I think that I had a stat that there were 121,000 linemen employed in the United States, give or take, at this point in time. And they predict there's going to be about a 9% increase over the next 3 to 5 years in the need for linemen to come into the trade.
Wow.
And then you've got a huge number of those people that are meeting retirement age.
That's what I was going to say. So it is a job that people stay in.
Right.
And because of that, you have an opportunity for there to be a large swath of folks aging out.
That happens. We're in one of those waves now where there's a lot of people that are at the end of their career. And there's going to be a huge need. Like I said, the predicted need of about 9% of that 121,000 to come into the trade, and it's growing. So
now, when you finish the lineman apprenticeship and whatnot, forgive my ignorance here, but what is the difference in a lineman and an electrician?
A lineman is just what it says. It's working on the overhead lines out on the grid, the poles, the towers, the lines to the transformer in front of the house. An electrician at a utility is typically someone who's in a substation, building out the control systems inside of there's always a control building in a substation.
Right.
They're building the protective relays. They're reading the wiring diagrams that the engineers put out. That's typically the electrician.
And they're probably not climbing a lot of poles.
They're not climbing a lot of poles. They may be up on a structure in a substation, but they are the hands-on people building out the utility side of the controls for how we run the grid.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there a strong need for that as well?
There is. Yeah. That's the same thing, especially at the municipal and cooperative level. Those people are also a lot of those are ready to retire, and there's a need to bring people into that. And there's also an apprenticeship for that. There is an electrician apprentice track inside the utility industry. So it is there.
And is that something also you need CDL and all of that stuff?
You will need a CDL. A lot of the trucks they drive out carry large reels of wire and trailers as well. So CDL, pretty much any operations level role at a utility is going to require CDL.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Okay. Well, all right. So last question that I have, unless you bring up another one,
you're fine.
Is what when we say it pays well, I mean, what does that look like?
So entry level apprentice who's gone through a training program. We currently required our utility a year of related experience. So really the pathway where I'm at is go to a climbing school or get hired on with a contractor and get a year's of your related experience. Then you've got a way in the door. An entry level apprentice is going to be, I don't want to give you the wrong number. It's about $30 an hour. And at the end of the apprenticeship of the 4 years, it can go up to about 35. So you're already looking at a $50,000 60,000, mid 50s, topping out at the end of around 70,000. The other thing is you're going to work a lot of overtime, and that's people need to understand that you're going to be out in bad weather when a storm hits. But when you're out in that, you're going to be earning anywhere from time and a half to double time, depending on who you work for.
Sure.
And your hours in those events are typically limited to a 16-hour shift. So 16 hours, get you some rest, come back. Big storms for the utility I work for, we wrap them up in 3, 5, 6 days. And that's what it looks like. So be prepared for that. It's a mental and physical strain
Sure.
to work that kind of schedule, but you get paid really well.
And we have plenty of it
Right.
around here.
Once you finish an apprenticeship and you become a journeyman, and it's going to vary regionally. Some utilities have a union bargaining agent, so they can bargain the wage scale for that utility. Some don't. But a journeyman who then progresses into a supervisory role can see that salary increase even further from there. Making $150,000 a year supervising line crews in the field with that background of being a journeyman electrician, having done an apprenticeship and worked another 7, 8, 9, 10 years. So there's some great earning potential out there.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And definite job security.
Oh yeah, the job security's there. If you have the aptitude for it, if you have the right attitude, I tell people it's a lot like a sports team. When you get into the trade, you're going to be working with a crew. A crew varies. Where I'm at, it's about 7 or 8 men with a crew leader, and it does become very much it's a brotherhood. You're with those people all your waking hours. Their life's in your hands, or your life's in theirs, depending on the situation. You have to trust them, and at the end of the day, when you've gone back out and either rebuilt a neighborhood after a storm, or you're just getting new customers hooked up, it's very rewarding.
Yeah.
It's a win. Guys that played sports like to win. And historically, I've seen linemen have come out of that environment. They played sports in high school. They grew up in a rural area. And that was a piece of what I wanted to talk to today is that's going to eventually dry up, right? We have moved further and further away from the rural agrarian society, more to the urban. Even here, when I moved to Rutherford County in '93, Sam Ridley Parkway, there was a Shell station at I-24.
And the Catfish House.
The Catfish House came a couple years later.
Yeah.
And then boom.
So we used to drag race on that road.
So that's changing. And part of what I wanted to do today was maybe give parents a mindset. If their child's not focused on that, to think, would this be something that they'd be interested in? I watched my son at an early age taking stuff apart in the garage, and I felt I knew where his aptitude was. He was a hands-on learner, and it's proven that's the direction he's gone. If a parent sees that, I don't think traditionally people really knew or thought, hey, you may want to consider working in a utility as a lineman, the electrician route. It's out there. Some of the stigma around you got to go to college, that's being repressed in our society. I think Mike Rowe over the last 25 years has highlighted the importance of not only does he look at blue collar but just some oddball entrepreneurial stuff that has to get done. But definitely this is a evergreen career, a lot of earning potential. I've seen young men come in with a good work ethic, and by the time they're 24, 25, they're buying their house, even in this environment.
Sure.
Right. And they're not worried about making the payment.
Right.
They know that they've got the opportunity to earn and, find the American dream.
Yeah. Yeah. No doubt. Well, I'm a fan. I think we put a lot of pressure on kids coming out of school that college is the only way to go.
Right.
And it's just, like I've said already, it's just not true.
Yeah.
And so learning about other opportunities, military, trades, mechanics, building. I mean, there's just so many things. I'm sure that your utility employs diesel mechanics probably to work on.
We have a full fleet department.
Yeah.
We also have a fleet apprenticeship program.
Yeah.
So we have a fleet.
I mean,
of
it makes sense. You got to
vehicles,
maintain the vehicles.
And let me, real quick, Jonathan, I've got another friend. He's a CEO at a utility in West Tennessee, municipal utility. And his wife's a professional person as well. And they're very driven people, good people. their son, oldest son, recently graduated a couple years ago and determined college wasn't the route for him. And it's interesting that a lot of kids started thinking about that with the pandemic. The pandemic changed a lot of things.
Yes.
And I think young people in that environment started really looking at what am I about to get into. But their son didn't want to go to a traditional college, but he grew up knowing what this trade was because his father
Sure.
went through the engineering part of it, made his way into management, leading a utility. And he approached them and said, I want to be a lineman. And a lot of people would say no, right? It's dangerous. You could get hurt, you could get killed, but they didn't. They encouraged him, and he knew the industry like I do. He pointed him to a lineman college. He went, and that young man finished. I heard he was one of the best they had come through the program, and he's in an apprenticeship now.
Mm-hmm.
So, the professionally educated parents that have reservations about, will they get hurt? Will they make enough money? It's not prestigious. Well, you can get hurt doing anything. And I had a lineman tell me early when I made the move from engineering into operations, if I follow my safety procedures, I should never get hurt electrically doing this job.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I may fall, I may sprain an ankle, I may drop something, but if I follow the safety protocol, I should never get hurt electrically. And
Right.
I believe that. I've seen people get hurt electrically, and typically when you trace it back,
somebody cut a corner.
It was complacency, or my mind was somewhere else, and that's
Mhm.
tragic when that happens, and no one wants that, but it can happen in any line of work.
For sure.
And the money's there, right? I mean, if you can go, once you finish an apprenticeship and you get 3, 4, 5 years out with your overtime, if you're not making $100,000 a year in this, you're doing something wrong,
Or you're at the wrong place.
or at the wrong place,
Mhm.
and that's a rarity. The
Mhm.
money's there, and the prestige. I mean, what's better than doing something you're passionate about, and you're serving people
Well,
who need what your utility's selling. So,
and other than the overtime aspect, and you
Mhm.
can't time when a storm comes, you get to clock out.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
you get to not
right.
be on. and
That's correct.
and a lot of times,
Yeah.
on the entrepreneurial side of things where I am, you don't
You don't
you
turn
don't clock
off.
out.
That's right.
No,
That's right.
never.
Yeah.
And so I mean, there's something to be said there, and it's very fulfilling. I can imagine, even like driving through neighborhoods when my father was delivering lumber and doing yards and stuff like that. And I do it to my kids too. If I've sold this house, we'll drive through. Hey, I sold that
Yeah,
house.
right.
So now Dad can drive through and
I
go,
built
hey,
that.
I see all those towers. I
Yep.
did that.
Absolutely. I do that. I drive around Nashville. I'm like, I remember when we built that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's very satisfying to see that. But it's a great trade, and I would encourage any young person that thinks they might have an interest. It doesn't cost anything to explore your interest.
That's right.
Parents who are concerned about what are my kids going to do, here's a way to go. And I told Trent earlier I was going to use lineman generically today. There's also an industry trend to bring young women into the trade. There was a event 2 weekends ago, and I believe in Virginia, called Girl Power, where several utilities banded together. They did a weekend event where they brought in young women from local high schools or recent graduates and gave them a hands-on weekend of climbing a pole, talking about what do we do in this industry. And that's encouraging as well to see that happen. I've known a couple women who have been at the journeyman lineman level. They've been very effective doing that, and it's a career track, so it's
For
there.
sure.
It's real.
Well, very good,
Yeah.
Brad. Thank you for coming
Absolutely.
in. Appreciate
glad
you.
to do it.
Trent,
Yes, sir.
I'm really thankful for you.
Thanks, man. You too.
And I'm going to spend some time today writing out some little notes. And here's what I'll tell you. If you have ever thought that you are thankful for someone, or somebody's ever done something good for you, don't hold that in. Let somebody know. And yeah, it's Thanksgiving, so obviously it's on folks' mind. But do that throughout the year. But if you don't do it throughout the year, do it this week.
Do it right now.
Okay.
Do it this
I
week.
mean, that's okay. But let folks know.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of people out there that are working and working and working and doing things that they don't necessarily want to do, just to make stuff work. And man, there's just a lot of people down right now.
Mm.
And you encounter them, you see it on their face, and you never know what one little pick me up might do.
Absolutely.
Big facts. You know what we didn't do?
What We
Bryan
didn't talk
Nale.
about, speaking of being
I'm
thankful,
very thankful for Bryan Nale.
holy smokes.
know.
I am so thankful for Bryan Nale over at Primis
We
Mortgage.
got a new commercial.
He's got a new commercial. Let's hear it. Let's do it.
Hey, my name is Bryan Nale. I'm a mortgage loan officer with Primis Mortgage. I want to tell you that I absolutely love being a member of the Spread the Positive Network. It's such a great mission and helps bring so much positivity to our community. It's truly be a pleasure to be a part of what they do. There are a lot of ways to navigate financing a home, and in markets like this, having the advice of a trusted local professional is key to making sure you get the right advice for your specific circumstances. Whether you're interested in the purchase of a new home, second home, or have a need for a refinance, I'd love to earn your trust. If I can help you nail your mortgage, call me at 615-243-3976 or visit nailyourmortgage.com.
But the beat drop was a little earlier.
Yep.
I like that because that beat drop is nice, and it was very clear.
Yeah,
it was like
yeah.
he was sitting here with us.
Yeah. Hey,
Yeah.
I'm getting better.
Yeah, nice job.
Graduating.
Where's the thing at the end though?
Ooh.
Yes,
Gee.
because that makes it legit when you have
Yeah,
the fast
but-
talker at the
Man,
end.
I knew I was forgetting something.
I
Hey,
got you,
the
fam.
closed captioning is there, and it's FDIC and all subject to something.
Whatever. Yeah, NMLS something
Hey, I
something
will-
something.
Sorry, I definitely need to get that.
That's all right. We'll get it fixed.
We
but,
did address it.
All right. Well,
There's some closed captioning.
I guess that's about
Yeah.
it.
And
That was great, Brad.
Thanks, Trent.
Yeah,
I
man.
enjoyed meeting you today.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Back at
He's
you.
an all right guy, I
Yeah,
guess.
he is a good guy.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
a good combo. Feel like I know you pretty well.
Yeah.
Love
I
it.
appreciate
Okay.
y'all.
All right. You
Thank
guys
y'all.
have a great Thanksgiving. And like I said, go tell some people that you're thankful for them.
That's right.
Have a good week.
Thanks.